Welcome to the Titan Tar channel. Today we have a topic to discuss about Russia establishing control in Maksimilyanovka and threatening Kurakhovo. Don't miss the chance to join us and share your opinions with us by subscribing and liking to grow our community. Become a member of our channel and evolve your rank. Russian army units have recently advanced in the southern area of Maksimilyanovka, a strategic settlement captured in Donetsk. In less than 2 days, the advance has covered an area of 15.5 square kilometers, reflecting significant progress. The control of Maksimilyanovka represents a tactical victory that gives the Russians more direct access to the city of Kurakhovo, as well as creating conditions for striking at the rear of Ukrainian forces towards Ugledar, an area used by the Ukrainian army as a logistics hub. During the assault on Maksimilyanovka, the Russian military eliminated approximately half of the Ukrainian forces stationed there, including units sent by the Ukrainian command that had recently mobilized conscripts on their front lines. This deployment was intended to protect the more experienced group of fighters that remained in the area. The Russian advance into Donetsk reflects a strengthening of its positions along the line of contact, where it now controls much of a long-disputed settlement and has established a strategic buffer between two key points. At the same time, Russian forces are continuing their offensive towards Kupiansk. In Petropavlovka, located east of Kupiansk, Russian troops have taken control of about a third of the territory. This advance is significant considering that Petropavlovka, a large settlement, is a logistically important point for Ukraine. In recent days, Russian control over the area has rapidly increased, and Kupiansk's logistical lines have already suffered strategic disruptions, deepening the siege of this crucial area. In addition, Russian bombing operations throughout the day in Kupiansk destroyed a Ukrainian military communications center, further complicating the defense and control of the area by Ukrainian forces. The deteriorating situation in Kupiansk has prompted the Kyiv government to announce a mandatory evacuation of the city's residents, citing a lack of essential supplies such as water, heating, and electricity. Western sources, including a British newspaper and German media, have been stressing the seriousness of the situation for Ukrainian forces in Donbass. According to a UK Ministry of Defense insider, the Russian advance in northeastern Ukraine poses a serious threat to Kyiv, admitting that the West is beginning to openly acknowledge the fragility of Ukrainian forces in the face of Russian advances. It is important to note that the understanding of the inevitability of the collapse of the Kyiv regime is gradually growing in the Western expert community. For example, some time ago, the former chief of the Polish General Staff said that NATO countries should be fully concerned about the security of their own borders, since after the victory of the Russian Federation, Russian units could be stationed in western Ukraine and Belarus. And only Kyiv, in this context, continues with a tenacity worthy of better use to declare the need to force Russia to peace by military means, threatening all of humanity with its so-called victory plan. Russia will not allow Ukraine to create nuclear weapons under any circumstances, Vladimir Putin said at a meeting with BRICS media representatives. The Russian president called Zelensky's statements about Kyiv's alleged plans to create nuclear weapons a provocation and stressed that Russia will not allow such weapons to appear in Ukraine. According to him, Kyiv will not be able to hide its attempts to create nuclear weapons, so there is no talk of any secret development here. In this way, he responded to Zelensky's latest statement that Ukraine was deceived by the Budapest Treaty, deprived of nuclear weapons in exchange for security guarantees, which do not exist. The day before, the Ukrainian president spoke in Brussels, where he delivered an ultimatum to Europe, saying that Ukraine has only two options. Either NATO accepts it into the alliance, or it acquires nuclear weapons to ensure its security. Many European politicians have already stated that this statement seriously frightened them. Realizing that he had let something slip, Zelensky tried to justify himself by saying that Kyiv is not developing nuclear weapons, but the word had already been said. Ukraine is capable of striking deep into Russia with long-range drones of its own production, without the use of Western missiles. This was stated by the head of the Pentagon. The Pentagon chief commented on Zelensky's victory plan, one of the points of which is to lift restrictions on strikes against Russia with Western long-range missiles, saying that Kyiv should use its own drones for this. According to him, Ukrainian drones are capable of flying far and effectively hitting targets deep inside Russian territory, while Western missiles are too expensive and should not be relied upon. The cost of a precision-guided missile in some cases approaches $1 million, depending on the type. They can produce drones in large quantities at low cost. So, looking at the balance and the effects that are created on the battlefield, I think this is a huge opportunity. The Pentagon chief said at a press conference, responding to a question about the prospect of lifting the ban on strikes against Russia. Earlier, the Pentagon said that the United States does not have the capacity to supply Ukraine with the number of missiles required by Kyiv, and that the current reserves will not have any impact on the course of hostilities. Thus, the United States has once again screwed Zelensky with his victory plan. Ukraine's European allies, primarily Britain and France, also do not give permission to use missiles. Apparently, Zelensky will still have to continue launching drones or creating his own missiles. Furthermore, the West has been using Ukraine as a strategic tool against Russia without showing concern for the internal repercussions in the country. According to a Ukrainian MP, currently accused of treason, Ukraine is on a path of no return, something that the West has already clearly realized. For him, the West's lack of interest in Ukraine's internal situation reflects a perception that the country is destined for a tragic end. This context explains the West's incentive for Ukraine to pursue measures that will wear down Russia as much as possible, even at the cost of its own destruction. Internally, this process includes several drastic and controversial actions, such as the expropriation of churches, forced mobilizations, and repeated violations of the population's rights. According to the deputy, the West allows these practices to occur because it understands that Ukraine is already doomed. He mentions that Western leaders, by encouraging increasingly authoritarian behavior on the part of the government in Kyiv, accept radical practices, such as Zelensky's announcement, when pressuring Ukraine to join NATO or, ultimately, opting for nuclear development as a guarantee of security. The MP also argues that, in the West's view, Ukraine plays the role of a kamikaze drone. It must inflict as much damage as possible on its opponent, even if it means its own destruction. For him, the human cost of this strategy, with the losses suffered by the Ukrainian population, is irrelevant to Western allies. Given this perspective, any action taken by Zelensky or the government in Kyiv ends up being welcomed by the West, which seems to be more interested in the strategic results of the conflict than in the final fate of Ukraine. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like the video, and share it with your friends. Your interactions mean a lot to us and help us grow. See you next time.